lack of trust. But here's the interesting part: Nigerian Startup Bill is private sector government. Why don't you show up for the private sector part?
Fair point. Yeah, at this point, I think we should let Timi come in. So we apologize for the issues with the network, but I guess Timi is back now and he can also hear us. So main question is what sticks out for you? What are those specifics that stand out for you in the Nigerian Startup Bill and the areas that could be improved upon?
Okay. Yes. So that's a gamut of questions.
Yeah.
So, and I like the fact that he has done extreme justice to the subject matter of areas of key highlights in that sense. Just add a few things. And also, I must tell you, as much as I would give a few critique, right, based on the question you asked, which is the later part, I must also tell you that if the Nigerian Startup Bill can serve as an epitome, a paradigm for how lawmaking should evolve in Nigeria. So it's just beyond the Startup Bill itself. Yep. It's about how the Startup Bill has tried to really engage with limited resources. No much of sitting allowance, yep. And evolved to this level. However, just a few things. So in terms of highlights, Section 3 stands out for me, right? In terms of the composition of Startup Management Council. Like he said, that what may come out of the National Assembly's eventual passed bill might be different from what we have at the moment, but that's where I think the media needs to focus on, because a lot of magic happens in between. That's what happened during the advocacy of the Not Too Young to Run, where the proposal that was sent to when it got to the Senate was for 30, and then when it came back, it remained the same age as it was. So these things happen. So I think that's what the media needs to look at. But in terms of Section 3 of the bill, I must say that particular section, in terms of setting up a Startup Management Council, is quite instructive. Also, a particular section in the 24-page document, which talks about the Consultative Council, Advisory Council, is also very key because aside the fact that, Section 3 talks about the National Council for Digital Innovation and Entrepreneurship, which has an increasingly authoritative policy stake in how the startup bill or act is implemented, right? It's also instructive to know that it has something called an advisory, or it gets consultation or feedback consistently from the Consultative Council, right? So, and the Consultative Council is made up mostly of private sector, non-governments. Yep. So you have the Computer Society of Nigeria in it. You have even some members who are already labeled startups, right? You have hubs in it. You have a lot of stakeholders, although I didn't see the media in it, right? And what you promote is what becomes popular. But that's just my own, critique of it, because the media is a key stakeholder in the whole frame of the entire ecosystem, particularly media platforms like TechPoint that marry the use of media and technology and can qualify as startup in that sense. Mm-hmm. So I think the feedback to that will be, in considering the Consultative Council, for those who will be labeled startup, perhaps media houses who are labeled startups can also feature prominently through that window, although it is not explicitly stated as such. So I think that's one key thing from there. Then also, if you go a step further, like I said, there's a dilemma when it comes to policy issues like this, particularly graduating to the level of bills and acts of parliament, right? There's usually the dilemma of, should we set up something new to serve as, the administrative headquarters, right? Which is the secretariat, or should we use existing structure? I think that NIDA hijacked that particular, because to be frank with you, I have my friends in NIDA, but then this startup bill cannot be credited to NIDA alone. Yes, in the course of the process, that was a fantastic turn of events that they decided to take on and work collaboratively. But it's more of a private sector thing. It's the startup community that battered the startup bill, right? And then it now, government now took initiative. Fantastic. We're glad about that. But I think NIDA took advantage of that, in that sense, of becoming that administrative headquarters for administering the startup labeling and all those other things that are involved, of being the administrative headquarters of the act or the bill. That's extra work for NIDA. How NIDA is going to pull that through, considering your existing work that it has taken upon itself, with the extensive and elaborate powers that it has in the NIDA Act, still begs the question in that sense. Now, in terms of the National Council for Digital Innovation and Entrepreneurship, right? I see that there seems to be an imbalance, sort of, but you cannot rule that fact out, right? There seems to be some level of collaboration in the constitution of that particular council. But where I see the imbalance is that it seems we have over 8 government parastatals, right, involved, and just over, I think, 4 to 5 in the non-government sector, which is like 50-60%, still a good start, but could be better, so because you see, one thing with government, particularly in this part of the world, with populating such, just such a progressive bill or law, is the fact that you see the body language of government. Like I say in policy, many times I say, look, policy is the actions of and inaction of those in governance or government institutions. And when you look at the body language of the policy makers, it is highly regulatory. Let's clamp down on this. So it is not shown to be as much as collaborative as we should be, right? And because of that challenge, well, this is a good start. And when they see the result of this, they will realize that collaboration with the private sector is still the best way, to drive innovation, rather than just use the hammer and stick approach, right? So with that kind of body language, I'm afraid that a laudable subject matter, a laudable platform as this, might be dominated by that mindset. The mindset to, want to just use the hammer and stick approach. But I hope that the small number of voices who represent the private sector will be tilted towards reasoning, in that sense of government agenda. One thing with government is that, particularly in a democracy like ours, is that when you see a certain agency take a particular action, there seems to be that there's a coordinated agreement, unconscious agreement, that this is where they wanted to go towards, right? So when you have all those number of 8 stakeholders in that council, what you then have is that you have 8 people who have one voice, right? Against 5 people who have different dissenting voices, right? Because if, for example, the government of the day's policy is towards hate speech, like the Minister of Information has always been on hate speech since 1960, that has been the core of his agenda, not realizing that, the Ministry of Information is also the Ministry of Information and Culture, and that you can collaborate with the innovation space to even drive that second element, which is culture, right? So fake news